Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining our Community-Led Development Incubator Report Highlights webinar. We'll be sharing today the highlights from our incubator report that we just published from 2025. I first want to share with you that we have simultaneous translation today from English to Spanish. And so to find the interpretation, if you are an English speaker and want to listen to the conversation in English, please find the globe at the bottom of your screen or somewhere on your screen, depending on where this toolbar is. Find the globe and enter into the English channel. But si hablas español y quieren escuchar la conversación en español, por favor, encuentren el globito. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, we'll move forward. Sorry, I got a little confused because I started hearing double in English, but if there's a problem, then we can just put it in the chat. Maybe Carolina and or Camilla, if you could put the explanation in the chat, because Paula is also joining, so she will need this explanation again. So welcome to our guests. So first, I will be sharing today about the incubator, but I want to welcome Stephanie Zapata from Nucleovani from the Dominican Republic, who was a participant in our 2024-2025 Community-Led Development Incubator program. And then also Susanna Namuli from Mungumulu Farmers Group in Uganda, a current participant in our 2025-2026 Community-Led East Africa Community-Led Development Incubator cohort. And so they will both be sharing their experiences today. So welcome to everyone else that has been joining. And okay. Carolina, our French speaker, is here, so you might need to put the French in the chat as well. Explain that we don't have French translation today. Unless, Emmerich, you feel extremely obliged to type some things into the chat, but that's up to you.
I can do my best.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you can help Carolina out. She's pretty good at French, but she won't admit that. So anyway, all right. So I'll just start with hold on. Sorry, trying to mute that. Sorry, trying to find. There we go. Okay. Okay. All right. It's always multiple. This is actually a look into part of our work, everyone, is we are often navigating several languages on a Zoom call. So this is just a look into our lives on a daily basis. So I guess that's a good thing that you're seeing that on our webinar or our Incubator Highlights webinar. So I'll start with our mission. And that is to co-create opportunities and strengthen capacities for community-led change in the coffee sector. And the Community-Led Development Incubator is the way that we carry out that mission. So it's our central program. And through this program, we partner with local leaders in coffee growing regions to strengthen their project design and management skills. And we support them to design and lead and measure the impact of their own projects. And these projects are designed in collaboration with their community members. And so they reflect community's own priorities and visions for change. So this is the timeline of the incubator and the 3 phases of the incubator. It's an 18-month program. And the first phase is the learning and design phase. So this is a 6-month phase during which time we are meeting with incubator participants one-on-one as well as in cohort. And the participants are the leaders of community-based organizations in coffee growing regions in both East Africa and Latin America. And so we manage two incubators simultaneously, for the East or Central Africa context and one for the Latin America context, so that we can, of course, do the Latin America incubator in Spanish and the East and Central Africa in English. And so during the learning and design phase, we are meeting with the participant organizations and their leader representatives on a monthly basis, and we discuss themes such as international and community-led development, strategic visioning, project design, project budgeting, timeline development, monitoring and evaluation, framework development, and also partnership development for long-term sustainability. And then we also meet with groups one-on-one. And the goal of this phase is manyfold, but one is to build trust between our team and our partners and the community-based organizations that participate in the program, but also to support the organizations and the participating organizations to design outputs, which are their project design, their plans, their timelines, their evaluation frameworks, how they are going to measure the impact of their project, as well as their budget. And each group has up to $15,000 to carry out their project. So after the learning and design phase, where they submit all of those documents, they go into the implementation phase, which is 9 months. And at this time, they receive the funding for the project, $15,000, and then they carry out the project in their own community based on the timeline that they have developed. And we continue to meet with groups and monitor progress. This allows groups to share with us their success, troubleshoot any challenges, and take a look at how things are going against their projections. So if there's, they're over budget on something, how can we adapt? If they're under budget, is there some, can we use some of those additional funds towards another activity? And also if there are, challenges around, for example, the timeline, harvest season, if things need to be delayed, we can discuss that as well. So after those 9 months, then each participating organization goes into the reporting and offboarding phase. And so this is a 3-month phase, the final phase. And at this time, each group applies the monitoring and evaluation framework that they designed. And they measure the impact of their initiative against the indicators they developed. And then they also offboard from the program, but onboard into our alumni network. And that network is essentially what it sounds like. It's a network for former incubator participants to continue working together. And we'll talk more about what that looks like, but right now it's primarily kind of managed through a WhatsApp group. And we also maintain some other opportunities for alumni, which again, we will share more later. So one of the biggest questions that we get is what kind of projects do participants tend to design? And so every project is unique, and so it can be hard sometimes to describe our impact in terms of quantitative measures around things like income increase or food security, because every project is different and not every project is focusing on food security. But we do tend to see all incubator projects can tend to fall into these categories. And so those are transformative infrastructure. So maybe building a new processing station for coffee. Food sovereignty. So maybe developing a new household gardens, for example. Clean water, climate, carbon, so kind of a climate resilience area. We see a lot with this area, whether it's farmer training or the installation of new infrastructure for clean water. but you see that these areas overlap, right? Because you might have transformative infrastructure for coffee, but that could lead to income increase. Or you might have a new infrastructure for clean water, but that's both a clean water project as well as a transformative income project. So these areas do overlap. Education. So we see a lot of farmer training, again, that can go into kind of a number of things. It could, if you're farmer training for increases in food sovereignty, that overlaps, but we'll see both farmer and youth education, a lot of farmer education for increased climate resilience, um, and or even for use of new infrastructure, new coffee infrastructure. And many projects focus on alternative income in different ways, whether it's farmers setting up new alternative income streams through a new like a small animal husbandry project, or growing alternative crops. And again, that overlaps with most of these categories. Oftentimes, people will develop. We've seen egg projects, so hen rearing or egg laying hen projects, and so that goes into increases in food security. People are both consuming the eggs; they're also selling them. And so finally, we have the gender equity category where we see a lot of increases in inclusion of women in projects as well as inclusion of youth at this point as well. Um, I think someone has maybe added a check or an X here on the screen. I don't know how that got there, but that's fine. But they might remain throughout the rest of the presentation. So, but this is the joy of having a town hall style meeting. So thanks for bearing with us, everybody. So this is just a vision of the incubator since it started. We have had 22 incubator participants, so 22 community-based organizations that have joined us since the beginning. And we started the program in 2022. So this is since 2022. And 59% of our participants are first-time funding recipients. So they have never received funding like this before to be able to carry out the design and carry out their own project. The other 40% of participants have received funding before, but the majority of those as well, it's been funding for a project that was not designed by them. So this is what makes our model unique, of course. So we've had 13 countries represented in the incubator. We've invested a total of 330,000 across all the projects to for a total of almost 3,000 direct beneficiaries, and the indirect beneficiaries are about 14,000. And so you see here, we've categorized the projects, and again, all of the projects are overlapping in terms of their impact, and I gave some examples of that, but we've seen that this is cut off on my screen here. The 73%, maybe if someone else can see that better, but 91% is projects leading to increases in participation from women and youth. 59% leads to improved access. Projects have led to improved access to education. 45% of projects have led to increases in food security and sovereignty. 64% of projects have focused on improved infrastructure, and 41% have focused on increases in climate resilience. Okay, and the one that's missing would be income. So although it's cut off on my screen, I know that that would be income in that sense. So 73% of projects have led to an increase in income. So how did we come up with those numbers? It's based on our own monitoring, evaluation, and learning protocol here at TCC. So we have a two-part system. So the first is that we gather our own, we sort of monitor our own progress through the incubator and our own qualitative impact. So what is the qualitative impact of the incubator on participants? But of course, we monitor our quantitative progress as well. And so, among others, we collect information such as the time that we invested in working with participants through both all cohort and one-on-one sessions. We measure the number of outputs that have been created by participants, like those project design documents. As you see, we assess the number and type of projects that result from the incubator project, the beneficiaries, so the number and identity of people benefiting. Here we've just shared overall, but we also assess kind of disaggregated data in terms of the number of men, women, and youth who are benefiting. And then we have a annual sort of interview process, which we'll talk more about, that assesses qualitative impact. So increases in feelings of pride, security, independence, and feelings of leadership and confidence in leadership that participants experience. And then, so we were regularly reporting that every year, but then also we are reporting the specific project-based impact that different groups have. And so each group develops their own set of indicators to measure their project during the learning and design phase. And so at the end of the incubator, each group reports against their impact and against the indicators that they have established. So the 2025 report highlights indicators developed and reported against by several of the groups in the 2024-2025 Latin America cohort. So we don't have, I don't think we have an example for you today on the slide, but you can check the report, but we will have one of the participants themselves speaking to their impact. So for 2025, this was the two incubators that we were managing in this past year. So we were simultaneously in the second year of the Latin America cohort and the first year of the new East Africa cohort. So you see that the Latin America cohort had started their projects in 2024 and then carried out their projects starting in 2024, but throughout 2025, and then they offboarded at the end of 2025, while the East Africa cohort started the learning and design phase in the beginning of this past year, and they will continue and finalize their work next year. So we're kind of, where are we right now? We're somewhere, where are we? We're somewhere in the implementation phase of the East Africa cohort in the beginning of 2026. So first, and if there are any questions, please, we will have a Q&A session at the end, but if there's anything you want to put in the chat, please do so. But we will start with some highlights from the Latin America cohort. So we had 8 groups from six countries, is it? Or 5, I'm trying to quickly count. But these are the participants. So we have Núcleo Aní from Dominican Republic, Tzinemit Toliman from Guatemala, Combrifol from Honduras, Fondo Paz from Colombia. We had 3 groups from Ecuador, Casa del Puma, Iwarina Pacha, and Comité de Jóvenes. And then we had a group from Peru, Damas de San Ignacio. So in numbers, this is the impact that we saw. Yes, 6 countries represented in the incubator. That was the number I was looking for. So 8 participants overall, 6 countries represented. 3 of the participants are receiving first-time funding. We had up to almost 3,500 indirect beneficiaries with 27 hours of our TCC provided guidance. And you see that the projects had a wide scope as well. The majority focusing on improved infrastructure and improved access to education, with a majority of projects also leading to increases in participation from women and youth. And these slides are in the report itself, so you can dive into the report itself to take a closer look. And also in the report, but something we want to share today, are the qualitative takeaways from the Latin America cohort. So they shared that we interviewed each participant at the end of the incubator, and they shared a couple things that were, I think, really, really impactful and meaningful for us to share with you. So first is they shared that their projects contributed to increased involvement of youth and women as active participants and leaders. And so overall, the majority of participants noted greater confidence, recognition, and decision-making power among women and youth leaders, and renewed interest in coffee and agriculture more generally as a viable livelihood pathway, which is really important as because we know that youth are considering leaving coffee throughout the global coffee value chain in search of other opportunities. And women are often undervalued and not seen as really active kind of leaders and participants in the coffee value chain. And so these projects really strengthened their involvement, and women and youth were seen as leaders of projects, not just beneficiaries. Another important outcome is we saw that a lot of groups were able to expand their networks and their partnerships after participating in the incubator. So in particular, through project implementation, participants were able to build new relationships with institutions at local to international levels. Their projects demonstrated their organizational capacity, which helped to establish their credibility and led to more formalized partnerships and expanded access to resources. And so this is something we see a lot through the incubator, is especially as you saw that 60% of participants are receiving first-time funding. They don't have this kind of proof, right, that they have the capacity to manage these projects on their own. We have the trust in them as the Chain Collaborative, as a trust-based sort of partner. But there are a lot of institutions that are looking for previous demonstrations of compliance with a grant or something like this in order for them to be willing to take on a new partner. And so we are able to help catalyze groups to get to that level where they can formalize those other types of partnerships. And then finally, one takeaway that this comes up a lot again in each year, but it's just important to mention is that participants consistently highlight that flexible funding and guidance from TCC enables them to stay aligned with community priorities. The incubator does provide structure and security, but and sort of leadership development, but the flexibility of how they can use those funds is really important because priorities do shift even within 1 year period. And so having to kind of rigidly follow a prescribed program is not always in the interest of community priorities. But the way that the incubator designed allows people to follow the community priorities. So I'll just share the highlights from East Africa, and then I will stop talking, and you'll get to hear from our participants themselves, which I think is more valuable. But the East Africa this year, the cohort, they started in 2025. We had 4 groups from 3 countries: Uganda, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Cooperative Miyaki in Uganda, Common Grounds in Ethiopia, Mungulu in Uganda, who will be speaking to us today, and the Farmers Caucus in Kenya. And each group is described both in the Latin America cohort and East Africa, so you can read about each group through the incubator report. But this is the overview in numbers. So 75% of the participants in this case are receiving first-time funding. And we provided 33 hours of specific coaching to each group produce 4 documents each, so their strategy documents and their project plans. And so the 100% of projects in some capacity are leading to increased access to education and farmer training, as well as to increases in income. And a big focus as well on improved infrastructure and food sovereignty in the East Africa context this year. So for the takeaways from this year, so not only do we ask participants about their sort of what their experience has been at the end of the incubator, we also ask them at the end of the learning and design phase, because that is the most kind of engagement that we will have with groups as we're really helping to support the design of their projects. So in East Africa, participants shared that the strategic visioning conversations that we sort of recommend that groups do within the community to design the project strengthen trust between community members and leaders and between community members themselves. They had the space to begin a collaborative design process, which increased also collective ownership and responsibility. And also in some cases, kind of geared people to think more in terms of how can we use this project for long-term, sustainable economic uh, growth for our community. And then, of course, participants also mentioned that the incubator helped to build new skills and capabilities in some cases, of course, kind of meaningful growth in leadership and business capacities. But some of the skills that they mentioned developing were community facilitation, budgeting, use of certain digital tools for project management, and also use of more formal financial budgets. Um, and in some cases, groups had to open bank accounts to even kind of receive the funds. And so they formalized their financial system through this project, which has well, I'll let Susanna talk about that, but it's led to even more impact. Um, and overall, participants felt that they have strengthened their ability to manage projects overall moving forward. And then finally, again, similar to the Latin America context, the way that the incubator is structured allows groups to truly address community priorities. Participants value designing projects based on these priorities rather than external agendas. And again, while the incubator provided a structured framework and suggested, kind of long-term visioning, uh, really the community focus ensured that projects truly reflected community goals rather than outside ideas or even individual assumptions of leaders. If just leaders design the project, that can kind of be based on their assumption of what they think community members need, but really talking within community, often different ideas come up. So yeah, this is all in our report, so you'll be able to dive in on your own and again read about each group and read about these takeaways more, in particular. But I want to highlight one of the participants in the Latin America cohort, which offboarded last year, is Stephanie Zapata from Núcleo Bani in the Dominican Republic. And so we have invited her to join us today to share about her experiences in the incubator and her project as well, the project of Núcleo Bani that she was the representative for. So, Stephanie, please take it away.
Muchas gracias, Nora, por la oportunidad y ese gran avance que han tenido como incubadora. Vamos a explicarle un poco de lo que es el proyecto del núcleo en República Dominicana. El núcleo es el Núcleo de Asociaciones Cafetaleras de Baní, incorporado en Acaba. Nuestro proyecto con TCC es adquisición de máquina despulpadora y la integración para la calidad y la integración de jóvenes y mujeres dentro del proyecto. Trabajamos con 4 comunidades dentro del Nuacaba, con 3 componentes principales que abarcó la adquisición. Bueno, aquí vamos con la parte de capacitación, donde pusimos un eje importante que es la contribución de la mujer dominicana en la caficultura dominicana, donde ellas se sientan visibles, donde ellas se sientan partícipe de cada uno de los trabajos que fomentan y realizan cada una de estas mujeres. A veces no saben qué trabajo conllevan directamente, pero debemos recordarles que cada trabajo y cada paso es de importancia, tanto para ellas como personas como para la comunidad. También distribuimos dentro de las mujeres 13 máquinas despulpadoras, donde cada una de ellas no tienen los recursos para comprar una máquina despulpadora, ya que no todos tenemos los recursos, te cuesta de 25 y 30 mil pesos cada una. Entonces no estamos produciendo café de calidad porque tenían defectos, estas máquinas ya no podían ser prácticamente trabajadas ni reparadas. También trabajamos lo que es el tema de capacitación dentro de la caficultura, que es el manejo post cosecha, donde trabajamos los temas de manejo integrado de plagas, nutrición dentro de los cafetales, poda. También trabajamos la trazabilidad en café, desde la siembra desde la semilla hasta la recolección y la comercialización. Ellas deben saber tener una buena trazabilidad, ya que eso conlleva qué ingresos y qué gastos sostuvieron y la importancia también de hacer productos rotativos dentro de la finca. Aquí estábamos impartiendo lo que es la capacitación de economía doméstica, cómo ellas con esos recursos que le quedaron de la caficultura pueden implementarlo dentro de su hogar y tener adiciones. También la economía circular, esos residuos dentro de la finca que se pierden o que prácticamente caen directamente dentro de los rubros y dentro del café. Eso fue una capacitación de suma importancia para nosotros poder decir a las mujeres qué etapas tiene el café dentro de su finca y cómo podemos eliminar esos residuos o poder utilizarlos en otros productos o acciones dentro de la finca. Pienso que ha sido de gran importancia esta intervención de TCC, porque como dijo Nora, no solo elaborar un proyecto, sino que nos aportaron nosotros poder contribuir con las necesidades que tenían las organizaciones, las comunidades. Entonces, para ello fue de éxito y se siguen implementando acciones a pesar de que ya se terminó el proyecto. Se trabajó en la elaboración y construcción de abonos orgánicos en tres comunidades, la asociación de mujeres, el grupo de jóvenes y una asociación del Manaclar. Aquí podemos identificar la entrega de 13 máquinas despulpadoras, la entrega de 1.265 plantas, tanto de café como de frutales, con ayuda y colaboración que se afianció gracias al proyecto con el Ministerio de Agricultura y el Instituto Dominicano del Café, donde sí teníamos alianzas, pero vieron el proyecto que era un proyecto adaptable y demostrando nuestras necesidades reales. Entonces fue de gran impacto para nosotros. Aquí algunas imágenes de la distribución de mujeres, jóvenes y hombres de las diferentes comunidades que implementamos con el proyecto. Dentro de las capacitaciones, dentro de la entrega de las máquinas, dentro de la multiplicación que se hizo con el abono orgánico. Algunas están vendiendo ya abono orgánico dentro de la comunidad y algunos le facilitan a otros la formación para la multiplicación, que se extienda, que no solo porque se terminó el proyecto signifique que no vamos a seguir avanzando. Lo estamos apoyando con la formación también entre las diferentes comunidades y seguir asistiéndole para que otros también les llegue esta formación y estas oportunidades que lo que ya han obtenido. Aquí estamos con el Instituto Dominicano del Café en los temas de nutrición y manejo integrado de plagas, donde le enseñamos cómo identificar tanto las plagas de broca y demás que estamos trabajando por el cambio climático. Y pienso que ellos identificar eso a tiempo, podemos tener un café de calidad y más producción. Dentro de todo esto se han formado 52 mujeres y 88 hombres, ya que dentro del proyecto solo estaba destinado a 30 productores, o sea que ha tenido buen alcance. Hemos realizado varias visitas también con algunos técnicos. Aquí estamos en la elaboración y construcción de las aboneras, explicándole los diferentes tipos de biol y compost, en el cual ellos implementaron toda la parte del proyecto. Pienso que estos fueron los tres ejes principales que han demostrado que este proyecto ha sido significativo para nosotros y más la experiencia de TCC con la formación de 6 meses a un año, pienso en la formulación, en el cronograma, los indicadores y en mi persona realmente ha sido de importancia, a pesar de que hemos trabajado con proyectos, no habíamos encontrado un proyecto que se identificara tanto como con las necesidades y la acción de trabajo del no acaba, ya que, como ya se ha recargado, viendo así la importancia de las necesidades que tenían las comunidades, la aceptaron a la perfección, sin excusas, los fondos a tiempo, y nosotros empezamos a trabajar de inmediato. Hicimos varias reuniones con los productores, varias acciones que realmente en el camino se pudieron ver los frutos y seguir trabajando. Todas estas capacitaciones sirven para un nuevo proceso y nuevas iniciativas dentro del NOCAMA.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Anything else you'd like to share before we move on to Susanna? We'll have a Q&A later. Okay. Okay.
Ah, sí, un poquito de la experiencia. Espero que no me tome mucho tiempo. Eh, bueno, tanto con las formaciones que hemos tenido con TCC de mi parte, tanto del núcleo, ya tenemos otras propuestas, tanto de proyectos y otras iniciativas. En mi persona, con las capacitaciones, las formaciones, a cargo de la Unidad de Igualdad de Género del Instituto Dominicano del Café, porque aparte de los trabajos que ya hemos venido realizando, este proyecto abarcó lo que era el Instituto Dominicano del Café. Ellos formaron, también nos colaboraron con algunos insumos y pienso que desde ahí vino la iniciativa de colocarme en lo que es la unidad de igualdad de género, que eso para mí me tiene muy emocionada de seguir formando y trabajando con mujeres. Y también actualmente representante de la coordinación enfoque focal de género de Prome Café a nivel de Centroamérica y el Caribe. Eso me tiene también muy emocionada y pienso que es parte de todas estas iniciativas y estas formaciones que hemos tenido como líderes comunitarios dentro del NUACABA y de otras organizaciones. Gracias.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Carlota, for the translation. Um, Okay, so well, we'll have a Q&A, so think about, yeah, maybe as well you can look at the report simultaneously to listening to the webinar and see the description of the Nucleomani project. Carolina, correct, it's in that one's in the report. We haven't highlighted every single group's indicators, but I think they're in there. Um, just checking. I don't want to tell people to look at the report simultaneously and then we don't have the numbers in there. But I believe that they're showcased and there's a full description of Nucleovani's project is in the incubator report for this year with some of their indicators. So you can take a look at that and then think through any questions you might have for Stephanie. But for now, we will shift to Susanna Amuli with the Mulungulu Farmers Group in Uganda. So I think you have these photos in a particular order. So we'll start here, Susanna, and please take it away.
Thank you. Good day to all. Yeah, so as the pictures play, I'll say next. But I'm hoping to use some stories to highlight some of the learnings and takeaways that Nora mentioned. So first, I'll introduce Gloria Chisache and Margaret Jumba. I'm the one in pink. They're the others. And the three of us were involved are still involved, and we're the ones that are doing the learning and design phase with the Chain Collaborative team. And so we are taking part in the 18-month program. The first advantage is that because all three of us were involved, it meant that we had different perspectives or different roles. Gloria, the founder of the group, lives in Mugungulu. Margaret Jumba lives there most of the year. Then there's myself who goes back and forth, but I could support in terms of certain things that were new to Gloria or to Margaret, things as simple as using the digital tools. For Gloria, this was the first time she was using Zoom and Google Meet, and sometimes it got quite dramatic to make sure that she was on the call. But she's really enjoyed it and has learned a lot. And one of the things that's happened is now we've got, as part of a project, new mobile phone, because that was part of a problem. It was really not working. And a computer for also record keeping and things like that. So I just wanted to highlight that the skills were as basic as that. But then also in the learning and design phase, it helped us to learn the different consultative, communication, negotiating skills, so that we would then go back to the group and discuss what it is that we are learning, but also try to get input, because that was going to be very important in enabling members to take ownership and responsibility for the activities. So we also appreciated the opportunity to think through all the aspects of a project right from the beginning, because as Gloria mentioned in one of the meetings. There were so many ideas, and so prioritizing, budgeting, thinking through things right from the start was very helpful to all of us. And then, of course, translating terms like indicators and MEL and into ways that we could communicate and therefore get useful input from the community. That was another thing that it was helpful going through the design and learning stage. The next photograph. This one is the group, some of the group. So the with the backdrop of matoke, plantain, and some coffee. 11 of the 19 members of the group are women. And I wanted to highlight that because this really is meant to strengthen their participation, because although many of them, I think all of them, have coffee as one of their income generating activities, many of the women don't actually have the authority to on how that income is spent. And so having a project, and that was one of the things that was really a priority, having a project that can bring in income, especially during off season, coffee off season, but where even the women can have authority on how that money is spent. That was very important. And then it was also a good experience, because initially we had some people are suspicious of this kind of process, saying, "Why are you asking us what you want us to do? You tell us, you have the money, tell us, then we'll do it." And so just working around that, because that is what is the usual thing. Somebody comes with a program, and then so it was like, is this even real? Some people didn't believe it until the money came in, to be honest. But it has also strengthened the group in terms of some people who are not taking it seriously. They were not doing the savings that was part of the activities. Now are thinking, oh, if I'm going to access some of this, then let me take my membership in the group more seriously. Let's go to the next one. Again, so that's just a photo of one of the group meetings. And that particular one was the first meeting, the inception meeting. If Nora, did you move? Yeah, so that was taken at the inception meeting, where we just had everybody reminding some of the people who had not been attending, this is what's going to happen. But for most people, just getting on the same page. If you see on the table, some of the things that have happened is we're strengthening some of the structures of the group. We have office supplies and, record keeping material, and there's a stamp there somewhere, receipt book and things like that. So a lot of that, some was happening, but maybe to a lesser level because of funds for some of these things. But then also I want to highlight that it's sort of like a card. We have been able to register for an account at the sub-county level. This is a big deal because it opens up higher levels of credit for the group members, but also it's really one of the first formal registrations in terms of financial tools. So that's been a very good development. But also, just to add on to that, generally in terms of expanding networks and strategic partnerships, even before a lot has been done, we're already getting interest. Like the government 1 Acre Fund have reached out to us because they're always looking for active groups that they can support people who are organized well, and they're already reaching out to us to see how the 1 Acre Fund is a coffee fund that the government runs. So things like that have been helpful, and even the registration. I just got that photograph just 2 days ago, but the registration at the sub-county level has also been completed, and this is mainly because there's more funding that's come in to be able to help with that process. But in terms of other skills, just the process of going through some of that, what are the requirements? How do we do this? That has been very helpful. The next, I wanted to highlight that that's just the water tanks for rainwater harvesting, and for that was another priority because some of the households around haven't got running water or it's far from them. So this is bringing it closer, but also helping the project because it's a chicken. If you've seen the report, what's happening is we've acquired chickens. And we're going to get eggs from them and then incubate those eggs. The incubator is actually a donation from one of the group members, which is really encouraging because it shows that, you know, somebody is committed to this. And so incubate and then give the members 1-month-old chicks. And if we can go to the next one, next picture. So this also enabled us to have the chicken house built and also to control, you know, cost, but also quality of the feeds. We've also acquired that maize meal, which interestingly, something we hadn't really thought about, but now the community is bringing their own food for mealing their own millet, their own maize. But it was actually the thought was for the chicken feeds. And this is good because there's goodwill from the community because this has become the closest meal for many of them. But also we are earning a bit of money from it at the moment because we hadn't really anticipated this. We haven't worked out exactly how much to charge that will do well. But for now, what we're earning is running it in terms of fuel. Yeah, so of course, next, please, the chickens will be a source of protein, the eggs as well. So there's that aspect of the food security, but also as we increase, the point is to have people rearing chickens, earning money from egg sales, from chicken sales, and I think that's the last picture. Yeah, the eggs, at the moment, what's happening is we're getting to the point where the volume will be high enough so that we can incubate them. So for now, the chickens, the eggs they're laying are just being sold for the next 2-3 weeks. And then when we get enough volume, then we will be able to incubate, and after a month, start to give out the chickens. I think I'm in the 10 minutes, and that's about it. I hope I've highlighted as much as was meant to. Thank you.
Great. Well, before we get into next steps here, because we'll finalize with this, but maybe I'll just take off my screen for a second and see if there are any questions for the either Susanna or for Stephanie. You can either unmute yourself or raise your hand, but as you're thinking about questions, maybe I'll just make a comment. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that Susanna revealed and I put into the chat are some of these, you know, impacts. They're just getting started with their projects. So you see with the Nucleoani example, they've finalized their project, and within the report, we were able to share the kind of specific indicators of success. And then, of course, each group talks about, you know, increases in new partnerships and increases in skills and confidence. But I think what Susanna shared for me really gives an example of that kind of the other, you know, kind of qualitative impact of the incubator, where just, you know, having to, in some cases, if it's the first time groups are receiving funding, opening up a bank account and doing a project like this has led to increased access to financing that they didn't have before, which is really important for, you know, additional work going forward. Groups, you know, we mentioned that different groups are in the Latin America context as well have said that, you know, other institutions are starting to take notice of them. And so Susanna gave an example of that with the 1 Acre Fund in Uganda. And then, yeah, with the sort of the example of the The maize milling machine, I think, is really valuable as well. That it wasn't necessarily thought of in the original project plan, but now they're realizing, well, with this new infrastructure that was supposed to be for the chicken feed, it can also be used as an alternative income because people are coming to use it. So, we see that there's such like small additional, well, I shouldn't say small, but just additional points of impact that are coming up throughout this process as communities are really leading their own development. And I think it's really interesting to note, as you did, that um, the group in Uganda, they didn't believe it at first. Like there's a funder coming to you and saying, we have money for you and tell us what you want to do and then you can do it. And they said, well, that's not how development is done. Like this isn't true. And it for us, it is just demonstrates that the work that we do does go against the typical sort of status quo, but you see that it has this incredible impact. So yeah, just thank Susanna and Stephanie for sharing that. But any questions for either of them? Unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Or if not, maybe I'll ask one to Stephanie. Did you experience that same thing? Were any of the members of Nucleolani kind of surprised that this project could be theirs to design? Was that new for many members of the group?
Sí, esa parte sí. Como había dicho anteriormente, no los proyectos te dicen, pueden aplicar por sus necesidades concretas. Siempre traen el modelo y más o menos se pueden ajustar algunas cosas, pero no desde el principio. Y eso le gustó mucho, ser libre y expresarse realmente lo que estaban viviendo en cada una de sus áreas. Eso para ellos les hicieron muy feliz y concretaron el proyecto.
And then maybe just final question for Susanna before I kind of close out with next steps. What are you, or even for both of you, but what are you looking forward to most for 2026, Susanna, with the project, with the group?
Well, well, first of all, fingers crossed everything goes as planned, which it probably will not. But I would like to see people actually start to do the work of the rearing the chickens. But of course, later in the year, I don't know if I'll be able to, but when people start to receive money from their chickens, that's a picture I would like to be there for. But also as the group has gotten strengthened, I would like to see what else. So I've been really, really pleased by some of the surprising results already. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing things that maybe we didn't anticipate or which will scale even farther than we thought. So I'm all up for the surprises, but I would also like to see that what we've planned goes according to plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, as a project, I like to say, when we in the incubator, when we talk about just project design, it really is a linear process. We ask participants to think linearly in terms of the design and what are you doing first and what are you doing second and what's the timeline, but as you actually carry out the project, it's never linear and things don't always quite go as planned, but the flexibility of the program really supports that and allows us to connect and troubleshoot as we go forward. So, well, thank you to both of you again. If there are any questions, you're a quiet group, so but that's okay. We're glad that you're here. But I'll just share the next steps and then make sure we close on the hour here. But so the 2024-2025 Latin America cohort, which Nucleolani was a part of, they've joined the alumni network. And so that means that from now going forward, they will have access to the alumni network kind of WhatsApp group where we share opportunities. And we also maintain a small project fund where they can apply for smaller amounts of funding. And not through the incubator process. Of course, they have the skills from the incubator, and so they design newer projects and carry them out and design their own measurement as well. But can on the timeline that makes sense for them. It's not the kind of course, the 18-month program. But so that's kind of our moving forward. We'll continue to welcome them and engage them in the alumni network. Then Susanna's 2025, 2026 East Africa cohort. They've already moved into the implementation phase, but they will continue through that until July and then enter into the reporting and offboarding phase, report on the impact of their projects, and then themselves join the alumni network this year. And then at the end of this year. And then in April of this year, we will be onboarding our third ever Latin America cohort. So this will be our fifth cohort overall and our third Latin America cohort. And so if you or anyone you know on this call want to be involved in that, whether it's supporting the incubator through recommending a participant, or financing a participant, or you have interest in kind of looking to support a particular project that results or a particular region, or even a sort of focus area, you're obviously welcome to get in touch. We would love to hear from you. But general support overall for all the groups as well is very valuable. Our application deadline was February 1st, although if we don't start until April. So if you want to get a last minute application in, please do let us know to join the next Latin America cohort. And and there's opportunities to continue supporting the alumni network. We utilize general support to kind of maintain the WhatsApp group and host learning webinars for alumni, but also to support the small project fund. And so in 2025, we were able to grant 28,000 across the alumni. And so these are, again, small projects. So there were about, I think, 4 or 5 projects that were supported through the alumni network last year. So that is my email if you want to get in touch. If you have any questions about the incubator, want to know how to get involved, or have any questions for our participants today. But thank you so much. I've used 1 additional minute of your time. Thank you so much for joining. We'll have this recording available, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye, everyone.